had two agendas this morning. So the first agenda was to take breakfast, which will continue as we progress the meeting. And of course, the second agenda is to present our advisories to you. So I want to request that we be upstanding so that we can do the national anthem. Then we do the East African. And because we are speaking about human rights defenders, we'll also do Wimbo ya Mapambano. And Livingstone has told me that the headquarters for Wimbo ya Mapambano is in that corner. So I want them to be ready to present their Wimbo once we've done the two. So can we do the national anthem?
Nguvu yetu amkeni ndugu zetu na tujenge taifa letu.
Mungu twaomba ulinde Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike, umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Uzalendo pia mshikamano iwe msingi wa umoja wetu, na tulinde uhuru na amani, mila zetu na desturi zetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike, umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Viwandani na hata mashambani, tufanye kazi sote kwa makini, tujitoe kwa hali na mali, tuijenge jumuiya bora. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuwajibike, tuimarike, umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
I don't know whether we sing the Wimbo wa Mapambano standing or seated. The team at the headquarters. So please come and have the microphone.
Let's have our left hands in our chest. Kupigwa na kupokonywa maisha, tuzuia sisi wananchi kuja kuwa uhuru wetu. Haki ya jasho letu, haki ya jasho. Kata kupiga magoti mbele ya
hali ya utumwa tumeikata, nyakuwa mashamba yetu, piganie uhuru wetu, tuikomboe elimu yetu, utamaduni pandavye, utamaduni pandavye tu. Sisi tutaki kudhulumiwa, hatutaki tena mauaji. Bila shaka sisi pia ni watu, ya uhuru tumeikataa, hali ya utumwa tumeikataa, na katiba yetu Kenya wa Kenya, katiba yetu wa Kenya tupiteze, na mashujaa wetu Kenya wa Kenya, mashujaa wetu wa Kenya tuwakumbuke leo.
Thank you. I've seen a couple of us struggling. With the song, but Commissioner Jadida has done so well. So I want to request that we all get some lessons after this from that table, because it's a team that has sung this for quite some time, and it's a song that human rights defenders identify with for the struggle. So I want to welcome you to this event, and I want to request that we do a quick round of introduction in our tables. So who has the microphone? Oh, it's me. So you'll just give us your name and your institution. Start here.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Millicent Tolo from the GIZ Civil Peace Service.
Hi everyone, my name is Masikuria from the Social Justice Working Group.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carla Lisa Hyman, also from GIZ CPS.
Good morning. My name is Clement Kimboi from the Commission.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dixon Gitonga from National Crime Research Center.
Irongo Houghton, Amnesty International. Good morning.
Good morning. Teddy Ocheng from the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights.
Good morning. Sophie Hansen from the Danish Institute for Human Rights.
Good morning. My name is Esther Kamau from Witness Protection Agency.
My name is Kavuli Bernard, a friend of this commission.
Ashley Bakita from IPOA.
Good morning. My name is Aoko Ayeko from Defenders Coalition.
Good morning. My name is Fidelis Mothike from the Commission on Administrative Justice.
Good morning. I'm Ruth Gishuru from the Director of Public Prosecutions.
Good morning. My name is Anne Gambi from the ODPP.
Good morning. My name is Amundi Handa from Global Action for Women with Disabilities.
Great, thank you. Sijasahau. I've not forgotten about this table. So thank you so much for getting time to join us this morning as we launch our advisories that focuses on the work of human rights defenders. So my name is Samson Omondi, and I direct the Commission's work on human rights defenders, among other things. So I want to invite our CEO to just welcome you officially. But before I do that, I wanted to say that we've made some small adjustments on the program that he shared with you. And we'll invite the CEO to give brief opening remarks. Then after that, I'll present the advisories to you. And it's important to know that the advisory is a continuation of our work that we had begun earlier on, and we presented the report sometimes last month. Then once we present the advisory, we will have it launched officially. And then now we'll invite the partners to give us their remarks on it, as we also look at the various commitments that they can pick in terms of implementing moving forward. So, Bwana CEO, please have the floor. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Okay. Let me take this opportunity to welcome all of you to this function where we are unveiling the right to defend rights advisories. My name is Dr. Bernard Mogesa. I'm the CEO of Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. And each one of you has a role to play in defending rights. Whichever position you hold in government, in private sector, at your individual capacity, we have a role to play. And today is your day. I don't want to make such a long speech, but I will welcome my team to come and make the presentation, and thereafter we can interact with what we have in those advisories, and of course the partners will have an opportunity of making some remarks on the same, and as Samson has noted, also make some commitments. But before I sit down, may I remind ourselves that we are moving towards an election period. And our experience is that the defenders must always be on the watch to ensure that Kenya remains one, that we defend the rights. And in any case, this country will be there, and we have to make it peaceful for all of us, and even for the generations to come. We are very proud to be Kenyans, and for those who have joined us from various countries, I feel most welcome, and I can assure you that the Kenyan people will ensure that this country and the rights are defended to the maximum and in accordance with the Constitution. Thank you very much for finding time to be here with us, and jisikie muko nyumbani, feel at home, karibuni sana. Back to Samson. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mogesa. So sometimes in 2022, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, working with the Danish Institute for Human Rights, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, and a couple of other organizations came together. And we came together in realization of the important work that is done by human rights defenders. And you are cognizant of the fact that while the human rights defenders play a very important role when it comes to promotion and protection of human rights, the operating environment under which they operate is fairly difficult. I think that was one. But number two, that we had a couple of laws, policies, practices that have been developed the world over that guides how they need to do their work, whether in terms of freedom of expression, freedom of association, registration, movement, security, and you can name all the rights. So arising out of that, the Commission with its partners developed a tool that we call Defend the Defenders Monitoring Tool. Now, why did we call it Defend the Defenders? We called it Defend the Defenders because human rights defenders in most cases are not defended. And people believe that they are left to their own devices. And we said, no, this should not be the case. Looking at the various mechanisms that are available, starting with the UN Declaration on Human Rights Defenders, the work done by the Special Rapporteur, if you look at the various conventions that are available, the important part was that human rights defenders play a very important role. Now, when you look at that tool, we identified 5 areas, and out of those 5 areas, they focused on the general framework for the promotion and protection of human rights defenders. It focused on freedom of association. It focused on freedom of assembly. It focused on liberty and security of the human rights defenders and all those. So arising out of that, the Commission, working with partners within the country, human rights defenders, social justice centers, state agencies, non-state actors, we did a monitoring exercise. Now, arising out of that monitoring exercise, sometimes last month we shared a report that laid bare the situation of human rights defenders. Now, one of the commitments we gave when we shared that report was that we will be following it up with advisories. Now, we are issuing advisories pursuant to our mandate that provides the Commission with the role of promotion and protection of human rights, where we work both as a watchdog and as an advisory to the state. So what we'll be doing this morning is building onto the report that we launched in August. We'll today be sharing the advisory. We'll be launching the advisory, which we'll then share with the various actors that are mentioned in that advisory. So there'll be those that will go to Parliament, touching on the recommendations that they need to do. There are those that will go to Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. We have those that will go to the Inspector General. We have those that will go to the Office of the AG, and every partner, and you'll see the advisories that once we launch it. So, I mean, by background is that the Commission is an independent NHRI established under Article 59 with immense powers to promote and protect human rights. So we are accredited by GANDRI and we are A accredited. This is a feat that we've gathered so jealously And we hope that increasingly and continuously, after every review, the Commission will stay to be an A status. We are also a member of the Network of National Human Rights Institutions known as NANRI, which we also have the privilege to host here in Kenya and in our offices. Now, the mandate of the Commission is to promote and respect human rights. And as we do this, we secure observance of democratic principles, values, and promoting constitutionalism, particularly in regards to today's event, issuing advisories to guide state compliance. State compliance both to its national and international obligation. Now, the advisories that we'll be launching today will serve three main purposes. Number one would be helping in monitoring and reporting on state compliance with its human rights obligations, particularly obligations related to the rights of human rights defenders. Number two is that it's going to help us in tracking progress towards the 2030 agenda. And we know that the 2030 agenda focuses on justice, freedom, and protection of human rights defenders. But finally, we hope that it's going to help in fostering stakeholder dialogue and advocacy for protection of the rights of human rights defenders. Not just in law, but also in terms of practice, how we interact and how we engage with them on a daily basis. Now, just a reminder and by background is that who are human rights defenders? A question that we are asked from time to time. Is that HRDs are individuals or groups who work to promote and protect rights and freedoms in our various spaces. So by this definition, you find that all of us in one way or the other qualify to be a human rights defender. So whether you are a state actor, whether you are a non-state actor, whether you are an individual, whether you identify with an institution, whether you do this from the comfort of your house, the fact is that you are a human rights defender. Now, by virtue of history, is that this dates to pre-colonial periods. And we notice that the gains that we have in this country, including independence, including the new constitution, including the various laws, including the freedoms, including the rights that we enjoy, all these have been made viable by the work that has been done by human rights defenders. And human rights defenders continue to pass on the baton to others. And that's why it's important that the environment under which they operate, the environment under which they do their work on a daily basis, is an environment which is secure, is an environment that can allow them to move freely, is an environment that where they can report and share their complaints, is an environment, most importantly, that requires the support of all of us as members of the public. Because without us giving them the necessary support, then they will not be able to achieve on their mandate. Now, the biggest achievement for the human rights defenders is the adoption of the 2010 Constitution. And I think increasingly we keep saying that we have the most progressive constitution. But particularly in that our progressive constitution is that we also have chapter 4 on the Bill of Rights. Coupled to that, we also have the article on national values. And when you speak about national values, you can put all of them: transparency, accountability, rule of law, sustainability, all those values. And I think the most important thing is not just having the values, but putting the values into practice, especially with the people that we deal with. And the question that we need to ask ourselves this morning as we launch the advisories is the extent to which we've put the national values into practice when we are promoting and protecting, one, the rights of human rights defenders, taking into consideration the important work that human rights defenders play. But number two is how we have translated those values into how Kenyans are able to enjoy their rights and freedoms on a daily basis. Now, just a brief on the challenges is HRDs face challenges that are known to all of us in this room. Challenges of arbitrary arrests and detention. Challenges of murder and enforced disappearances and extrajudicial executions, all in one line. Challenges of intimidation, particularly from big multinationals, when you speak about slaps. Then challenges of negative profiling. I think it's important to note that when we speak about these challenges, unfortunately, most of these challenges arises from the actions of state agencies. And we always say that the state has the primary role when it comes to promotion and protection of human rights, including human rights defenders. Unfortunately, it's the same state that in one way or the other also engages in actions that violate rights. So when you speak about arbitrary arrests and detention, arbitrary arrests are only done by the police who are mandated by law. When you speak about murder and enforced disappearances, the allegations we have is that enforced disappearances and of course extrajudicial executions are also done by the states. When you speak about threats, when you speak about negative profiling, I think particularly on negative profiling, it's also important to note that negative profiling, we are also in a state where negative profiling is also coming from the members of the public. That we have some members of the public that consider human rights defenders to be a threat, and therefore they engage in activities that in one way or the other profile human rights defenders. And we know that the challenges that comes when they are profiled is that we subject them to danger. We subject them to an environment that is not conducive for their work. We subject them to intimidation. We subject them to threat. Now, looking at all this, you notice that it's important that then we put in place measures to protect human rights defenders. I think if you allow me, I'll quickly speak about two commitments that we have made to protecting rights of human rights defenders as a country. And I want to make reference to our UPR commitments, the Universal Periodic Review. That in our third cycle, at the 35th session, at the Human Rights Council, there were various recommendations that were made to Kenya. And the recommendations were not just made, but they were also accepted by the country. So key recommendations. Number one, this came from Austria, Estonia, and Norway. And we accepted that we are going to ensure that we investigate all attacks that are done to human rights defenders and to journalists, so that they are able to freely do their work and come out and expose what is required. And the recommendation was being made on the backdrop of various reports of attacks on human rights defenders, which unfortunately had not been investigated. And Kenya accepted that it was going to ensure that it does investigations on human rights defenders as well as journalists. Again, from Uruguay and Austria, we accepted that we are going to adopt a HRD protection law in line with international standards. And on this, we were going to borrow heavily, of course, from the declaration, as well as other conventions that impact on the work of human rights defenders. I think particularly on this, and I'll be speaking to it as I speak about the recommendation, is that the Commission at some point worked and developed a model human rights defender policy. Unfortunately, did not see the light of day. So we accepted that we are going to develop a specific protection law in addition to what we have. We also accepted from Australia again and Uruguay that we will uphold freedom of expression and association in line with ICCPR Article 19. And this is important, particularly because human rights defenders need to freely express themselves. They freely need to associate. They freely need to move around. I mean, in the absence of free association And in the absence of free expression, HRDs would be greatly limited in terms of performing their role. So again, we made a commitment in this cycle that we are going to make uphold freedom and of expression as well as association. Then we also accepted a recommendation from France that we are going to ensure that human rights defenders are safe wherever they are and in each and everything that they do. Now, we also accepted from Tunisia that civil society is going to be remain protected as well as human rights defenders. And by protection, we mean having an enabling environment. We mean having enabling laws. We mean having enabling practices. We mean ensuring that places where we operate, we are able to move freely. Now, of importance in all this is that some of the recommendations may have been implemented. Partially, but I don't think fully. So I think what I throw to us in this table, in this gathering, both state and non-state actors, is looking at the recommendations that we accepted during our third cycle review. Is there a role that National Police Service, for example, have in this? Is there a role that CAJ have in this? Is there a role that ODPP have in this? Is there a role that WPA have in this? And is there a role that human rights defenders themselves have in this? Is there a role to be played by non-state actors in terms of advocacy in ensuring that some of the recommendations that were provided are implemented, whether fully or wholly? Because the import is to ensure that all recommendations are implemented fully so that HRDs, and of course, when HRDs have an environment which is acceptable to them, then all of us in one way or the other are able to freely enjoy our rights. Now, in terms of overall assessment, 2020 to 2022, this is how we score based on the tool. That in terms of the general framework, in terms of general measures, we are at 30%. And this was looking at various parameters in terms of laws, in terms of policies, in terms of practices. In terms of human rights education, we are at 56%. And when you speak about human rights education, we are looking at human rights education that is imparted to state actors, particularly those that are charged with maintenance of law and order. So, National Police Service, Kenya prisons, but particularly also the military. And we mention military because of the role played by the military when it comes to, in cases, policing when we have uprisings. And we saw last year when we had the Gazette notice that allowed the military to come and help in maintaining law and order. So when you speak about human rights education, and we say that those that are charged with responsibility of maintaining law and order need to have basic information on promotion and protection of human rights in terms of arrest procedures, in terms of detention, in terms of investigation, in terms of making follow-up, all that, we are at 50%, 56%. Then when we get to freedom of opinion and expression, two parameters on that. Access to information, we do so well. We are at 90%. But freedom to hold opinion and to impart information and ideas, we are slightly low at 54%. Of course, just slightly above the 50% mark. So the question we ask ourselves is, after accessing the information, what do you do with that information? So it's good that organizations are able to access information. They are able to look for what's required. Organizations, state agencies are acceptable to giving out what is required from them. But once you get that information, the question that we ask ourselves is, what do you do with that information? Is it information that is helpful to you as a human rights defender? Then on freedom of assembly and association, here we score very poorly. And I mean, we all know what has been happening. And I think as we do the assessment, because one of the commitments I made last time when we did the launch was that we are going to do another assessment that will be for 2023, 2024, and 2025. Now, you need to note that this assessment is for 2020, 2021, and 2022. Now, on freedom to hold peaceful assemblies, we scored 40 over that period. I think we might possibly score worse over the period of 2023, 2024, 2025. Then freedom to join, to form, join, operate, and participate in association. So this is about registration of public benefits organizations, NGOs, CSOs, and such organizations. We are at 62%. Now, participation in public affairs, we are at 75%. Safety, security of the person from abuse, liberty and security, we are at 70, and this looks at general insecurity concerns in the country, how this affects human rights defenders to do their work, as well as how it affects members of the public to move freely from one place to the other. Now, arrests and detention, access to remedy, we do 67%, and we are basing this from what is provided for in the Constitution. How effectively do we ensure that we effect and take care of the rights of arrested persons? Whether they are arrested in demonstrations, whether they are arrested just normally, how do we do? So this is our performance in those areas. And our hope is that as we do the next assessment for the year 2023, 2025, the situation would have possibly improved. But also we need to be alive to the fact that the situation could possibly be worse on certain parameters. So again, the challenge to us as actors seated in the room is that looking at the various measures, I mean, what are some of the actions that we can take in our various spaces to ensure that in all those 5 parameters, there are improvement. In all those 5 parameters, there are actions. In those parameters, we do what is required from us in our various spaces using our various mandates, whether provided by legislation or by our various acts. This is how we do at how we make report at the human rights mechanisms. I think we can pass these, Clement. And allow me to take a bit of time in terms of the recommendations that we are putting forward, which are in the advisories that we'll be sharing this morning. The first recommendation is that the country urgently needs to ratify the International Convention for the protection of all forms of all persons from enforced disappearances. Now, we are all alive to the facts on the challenges that we are facing with enforced disappearances in the country. We know that the National Police Service, the Office of the Attorney General, the ODPP, of course, Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, Independent Policing Oversight Authority, National Police Service Commission have tried their best to ensure that we deal with this, including setting up a multi-agency team that would help with issues of investigation, reaching out to individuals and carrying all that is required. But we have increasingly and consistently said that we are going to ratify this, but year in, year out. Now, the fortunate thing with the ratification of this is that this will now be a criminal offense under our laws. And I know the struggle that we've always had with the National Police Service is that enforced disappearances is, I mean, we don't have a law that criminalizes it. Okay? So, one of the things we are pushing the National Police Service, and of course through the Office of the Attorney General and Department of Justice and Ministry of Foreign Affairs, is can we all do a lot of advocacy towards ensuring that we ratify this convention? Because the ratification of this convention would help us deal with the various cases that we are having on enforced disappearances. Because this has been a recommendation year in, year out, year in, year out. Of course, with commitments that this is going to be done, but this remains. Now, number 2 is a recommendation touching on the rights of immigrant workers and those of their families. I think all of you in this room know that Kenya is considered to be a safe haven and a transit for migrant workers. I think that is one. But number 2, that we also host a lot of refugees, both in Dadaab, Kakuma, as well as urban-based refugees. Now, in terms of these workers, is that there are challenges that they face increasingly. So smuggling, trafficking, and all that. Now, we have not ratified this particular convention. And we are asking the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection, of course, working with the Office of the Attorney General and Department of Justice, that can we take the necessary step? Can we ensure that we do more advocacy so that we ratify this for helping in protecting the rights of these particular groups? I think the third one is on ratification of various optional protocols. And here we have a problem that we've been able to ratify a couple of conventions. But when it comes to ratification of optional protocols, we stay behind. So we have the optional protocol on ICCPR, the one on ICSR, CEDAW, and the CAT. Now, the importance of these optional protocols is that it will allow members of the public to make direct complaints to these particular committees or agencies. Now, the one on ICCPR, it will allow individuals, and I mean individual, if your right has been violated as relates to ICCPR, that you'll be able to make a direct complaint to the Human Rights Committee when your right is violated. When it comes to ICSR, it will allow victims of ECOSOC rights. When you look at Article 43 rights, education, health, and all those, which in most cases are violated, when we ratify this, when we ratify the optional protocol, we could be able to make direct complaints to the committee at the international level. The same apply to CEDAW. The same apply to CAT. Of course, on convention against torture, we've tried to go around it as a country. And while we do not have a national preventive mechanism, if you look at the Prevention of Torture Act, is that it's creatively tried to make the National Commission on Human Rights as the national preventive mechanism. But that is not enough. So can we do more advocacy to ensure that these optional protocols are ratified by the country? Because it will help in opening up the space, particularly for individual human rights violations. That in the event our courts, in the event our justice system is not able to provide you with the necessary redress, you can make an appeal at that international level. The next one is that the Special Rapporteur on rights of human rights defenders has always made requests that he will want to visit the country so that he makes an assessment on the extent to which rights of human rights defenders are being protected, on the extent to which rights of human rights defenders are being violated, on the extent to which he can work with the country in promoting the rights of defenders, on the extent to which he can partner with both state and non-state actors in promoting the rights of human rights defenders. Now, unfortunately, this visit has never been accepted over time. And we know it's a request that is made year in, year out. Visits are mostly facilitated by the Office of the Attorney General, Department of Justice, of course, to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, where they make their request. So we are making a recommendation that this request by the Special Rapporteur can it be granted so that the human rights the Special Rapporteur could come and help us in analyzing and making the situation better for human rights defenders on various areas that they work on. The next recommendation we are calling is the operationalization of the multi-agency team on enforced disappearances. And I said, because of this kind of crime, the Office of the Attorney General has tried, of course, working together with the National Police Service, to put together a multi-agency team comprising of both state and non-state actors, so that it helped in advising on how best can we deal with this crime. Of course, part of the mandate of this team was to support the development of a legislation, including advocacy for the ratification of the protocol on enforced disappearances. Unfortunately, the multi-agency team has not done much. We know there have been a couple of meetings, there have been a couple of engagements, including inviting the Special Rapporteur on enforced disappearances that at one time was here to support us, working in conjunction with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights to carry out capacity building, to advise on some of the steps that need to be taken. Unfortunately, the multi-agency team is not doing much. So one of the things we are asking is the operationalization, because the establishment has been done. But now making it work, facilitating it in terms of what is required. The Office of the Attorney General need to support us on this. Then the other recommendation is the development of a comprehensive national policy on recognition and protection of human rights defenders. Sometimes a couple of years, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, working with other actors, developed a model law on human rights defenders. And we copied from a cost of both national, international and regional frameworks, taking into consideration also what is provided for in our constitution. Now, we know how difficult lawmaking process in our country. And while we went far and finalized with the draft policy, I know the draft policy has never seen light of day, both by having it tabled at, by the cabinet and all that. So one of the recommendations we are putting forward is that we need to have a national policy that recognizes and protects the work of human rights defenders, which will be taking into consideration all these practices, all the available frameworks. So the Office of the Attorney General, of course, working with KNCHR and a host of us, need to come together and help in ensuring that we have this. Then the next recommendation on implementing the African Court, on the decision of the African Court on Human and People's Rights on the Ogiek case. This has been lagging for quite some time. We know a multi-agency team was set up comprising of KNCHR, I think CAJ, and other non-state actors. But the movement towards this, I think, has also been very slow. So can we see some steps toward the implementation of that particular decision? The next recommendation is the issue of training. And we are very particularly here about military training. Now, we mentioned military training because when you go to the northern part of this country, particularly when dealing with cases of extremism, when dealing with cases of terrorism, you find that our military in most cases have a role to play. So they play a role when it comes to arrest, they play a role when it comes to investigation, and they possibly play also a back role when it comes to prosecutions. Now, the struggle is that the military are not trained to do civilian policing. So in the event that they engage in policing duties, we all know human rights violations that would accompany this. So the recommendation we are making to the Ministry of Defense particularly, and we have an advisory that will be presented over to them, is that can we open up military training so that we can ensure that there's infused human rights, so that they are able to know how to protect, how to defend, and how to ensure that they are also part and parcel of promotion and protection of human rights. I know one of the arguments that has always been given is that the military are not involved in day-to-day policing. But in the instances where they're involved, I think our key aim is to ensure that violations do not take place. So any person that interacts with members of the public in one way or the other, they should be able to have basic understanding. They should be able to have basic human rights knowledge so that they support in enforcing that. The other one is the review of suits falling under SLAP suits and development of anti-SLAP guidelines. Now, this is very specific, especially to multinationals, and how prosecutions are being carried out to human rights defenders who enforce, who unearth violations, particularly those touching multinationals, those that touch those big companies that are well placed. One of the things, and we saw recently when we had the demonstrations and the destruction of property, we saw prosecution being carried under the anti-terrorism law. And I know we had a lot of hue and cry. And I know there are a lot of engagements, both formally and informally, with the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecutions. Now, we know Kenya Human Rights Commission has had this case with Kakuzi for quite some times. And of course, these are, nothing is done by human rights defenders. So what we are asking for is, can we review suits and that fall under this? And we know there are a couple, particularly touching on human rights defenders. So the Office of the Directorate of Public Prosecutions, this is for you. To our sister commission, CAJ, there's a need for a national survey on compliance with Access to Information Act. That there are certain institutions that do so well when it comes to need to access information. But we have some institutions that are very adamant. And of course, they would also give, they will also cite the law. And we know what the law says when it comes to access to information. So one of the things we are proposing to our sister commission is, can we have a national survey so that we can see the extent to which public institutions are complying with access to information when this information is required by members of the public, and particularly human rights defenders, because information is power, and information is required by human rights defenders for purposes of advocacy. Information is required by human rights defenders for knowledge. Information is required by human rights defenders to help them in their work. So, CAJ, a need for a national survey to support in this. Then an amendment to the 6th schedule of the National Police Service Act, in line with the High Court decision in Constitutional Petition 379 of 2017. And this we are pushing to the Parliament, the Office of the Attorney General, Department of Justice, because of the role that they play in amending laws, National Police Service Commission, taking into consideration the work that they do on the human rights resource, And then to the National Police Service, the issue of independent control over the National Police Service, and particularly on the use of force and firearms. Then a recommendation on to amendments and public awareness of the community groups registration to provide clarity on identity and operation of CBOs, particularly social justice centers. When it comes to their registration, when it comes to them acting, when it comes to them moving around, and when it comes to them delivering on their mandate. I think we already have a decision that has been rendered on the PBO case. I think it was rendered sometimes in this year, May, and it's removed some of those limitations that we knew was going to inhibit the work of human rights defenders, the work of social justice centers. Now, we are hoping that the decision as was rendered by the High Court, that is going to be followed by the review of that law, that those particular clauses that are requiring for provision of physical address, names of board members, requiring existing organization to register afresh, and all that, those are going to be removed so that human rights defenders can be able to register and operate in an environment which is free and, of course, fair. Then awareness on the provision and limitation of the Registration Act 2012. Then to Parliament particularly, legislation under Article 100 of the Constitution. This has been long overdue, and we keep giving the recommendation year in, year out. I know courts themselves have pronounced themselves on this matter, Article 100. I know there are steps that have been taken. Unfortunately, those steps never see the light of day. So to Parliament, can we ensure that we act particularly on this? And then the one on petition E519 of 2024 and its full implementation. Now, this will greatly impact on the work of human rights defenders. And what we are calling is that the Office of the Attorney General, and of course Parliament that is charged with making of laws and amendments, of course working with us as state agency, we must look into that so that we provide human rights defenders with an environment they are able to register, they are able to deliver on their mandate, and they are able to move freely. And those are the recommendations that we've contained in the advisory that we'll be sharing with you this morning. Thank you very much. If you allow me, I want to ask the CEO to be accompanied by members in this table so that we launch the advisories and then we get comments from our partners.
Kabiru, where are you?
Thank you, Bwana CEO, and thank you very much, Samson. May I request that we have this table 1 and this table 2 over here, if we can just come over so that we have some kind of arrangement how we are going to stand over here. Bwana Hilton, please join us as well. We are going to have the bigger team at the back, and then we have two here, the official cutting, if we make this. I think we are set here, but I see front here. Sophie, please come closer. I think we are good on that set. The media team, are you okay with that? Okay, the media team says the set is good. So we are going to do the official cutting of the ribbon, and then we'll do the unveiling. Joe and Sophie, you will lead the same. Okay, there you go. Have the cutting of the ribbon. Thank you very much. And there we have the official launch of the advisory on the situation of human rights defenders in Kenya. This is a well done job by team and the partners who have really stood by us to come up with these, the initial report that we launched a month ago, and then the advisories that we'll be sharing this morning. Asanteni sana. Thank you. Kindly, can we have Tibon and Tibotu again? I think we need to hand over the advisory to you, if you may. Please, Hilton. Victor Buire, Shuri. Please stand. Stand, my brother. Please stand. Come over, Victor. You're a veteran of human rights, and you're also a veteran, a media veteran. Okay, just for the purpose of the media and the photo ops, I may request that you lift them up so that they are visible. Yeah, please do smile. Thank you very much for obliging. Shukran.
Thank you, Kabiru, and thank you, colleagues, for this. So we want to open this up for comments and for feedback. And I think, Kabiru, for the media, we'll do a briefing once we are done with this. So this is just for the colleagues here. And allow me to give Olal maybe the first 2 minutes to say something in relation to this, because this speaks to human rights defenders. Olal. Kuja hapa.
Viva, comrades, viva. I want to appreciate the Commission and the work that they've done in thinking about human rights defenders. The last 2 years have been very difficult for us because of the protests. So many human rights defenders have had very difficult time being followed. Sometimes they have to not sleep in their houses. And I think this is a very important milestone. What I request is that the recommendations, it's good that you are delivering the recommendations quietly to Parliament and every stakeholders. But if they don't listen, please tell us. We will deliver the other way, the way we know better. Because we must protect human rights defenders. The work they do is very difficult, no pay, thankless job. So, human rights defenders, it's very unfortunate that we don't have a law in Kenya that protects human rights defenders. That is something that we must work towards. We need a law. The way we have laws protecting lawyers, doctors, we need a law that protects human rights defenders. It is unfortunate that we don't have a law criminalizing torture, yet people are being tortured left, right, and center. We need a law criminalizing torture. And these are things, like Wangari Maathai said, they will not be given to us. We have to fight for them. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much.
much, Alal. Allow me to invite Irungu to also weigh in.
Good morning once again. Allow me to also follow from Happy by just congratulating the Kenya National Commission on this report. Although it covers the period 2020 to 2022, it is still relevant in 2025. I wanted to offer a couple of quick remarks back. First of all, the period that this report covers is a period that I remember mostly as a period where a lot of the human rights defenders were working for NGOs. This was a period where a lot of people were professional NGOs, NGO staff. By definition, every state officer, by obligation under the Constitution, is a human rights defender. But there are very few that we can single out as having taken actions to protect human rights consistently. But if I think a little bit about the period post this report, 23, 24, 25, like Happy, I think I would go a little bit further, and I would probably argue that the next study will demonstrate, this is a prediction, I hope I've got this wrong, that the statistics that you've seen here, the graphs, will go down by 30% at least. As there are too many state officers who are being cowed as a result of orders from above. The culture of fear is too rampant in many of the state agencies, whether they are investigators, or police officers, whether they are prosecutors, whether they're even judicial officers. The entire structure, unfortunately, has become paralyzed by essentially executive state capture. And I think that's something that we have to discuss, even for the constitutional commissions and for the independent offices. If there is no willingness or, I guess, courage to exercise mandates, not just at the level of the independent offices like IPOR or the constitutional commissions like the Kenya National Commission, but even more importantly, among our police service, or among the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions, then the criminal justice system continues to fail Kenyans. And I just felt that I had to say this because I think where we are at 2025, particularly 2 years before an election, is a very critical moment in terms of leadership. So I really encourage those of you who are in this room, all of you I know as human rights defenders, to continue to infect the entire institutions that you come from and create more human rights defenders in that space. Second point, the human rights defenders that we've seen over the last 3 years have become a very interesting, very diverse set of groups. There are people like Naila Abdallah back down in the coast that have been working on gender violence. There are people like Njeri Migwe, who continues to find safe homes and safe houses for people who are being targeted. There are people like the young advocate Jele, who's in northern Kenya, who continues to raise awareness about extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances. These are not NGO people. These are not people who are working within the traditional structures like the ones perhaps that are here. The social justice community, which is now going, I think, to its first decade, remain under-resourced, they may remain under-protected, and in many ways they continue to take great risks to protect communities against excessive state violence. So I think we have to think in terms of the next report, perhaps having a shorter time cycle, so that we can get the recommendations that are there. Let me stop with maybe just one or two kind of comments. I think we, apart from the tension that we've had with the executive, I think we're also beginning to recognize that our societies are becoming increasingly socially anti-democratic. There is too much profiling, there is too much otherization, there is too much identity-based discrimination. Even as late as last week, we were trying to sort out the attacks on Somali Kenyans, right? And I think one of the things we don't hear enough from us as a community is actually how do we interrupt those identity-based discriminative culture that's beginning to develop. And let's be clear that this will intensify as we move to the elections. We need to see the voices of human rights organizations on all identity-based discrimination issues, sexual minorities, peoples with disabilities. There is a silence that is beginning to creep into our society on a number of identity-based discriminations that I think we have to nurture more carefully. I don't think we could stop at this, or I could stop at this point without mentioning the name of Otsieno Nyamaya, who is known to many of us as a dedicated researcher on human rights. He has worked with the Human Rights Watch community. He is currently under surveillance by the, we talked about a multi-agency task force not doing very much just here, but I think we should also mention that there are other multi-agency task forces that unfortunately have been very active during this period. And I think we have to find ways, particularly I think as the Commission, to protect people like Otsieno so that he is not isolated and targeted more directly. So these would be the comments. But again, congratulations on the report. I think the work ahead of us is wider than the scope that we've got here, but it does include many of the important recommendations that you have made today. Thank you very much, Kenya National Commission.
Thank you very much, Irungu. Thank you. And I want to come to Sophie, then I'll open it up before I get to this table. So if you allow me, Sophie, I want to invite you, then I open it up for all of us, including Bwire. After Sophie, you'll be next before we get to this table. Sophie? And just also to note that apart from the English versions that we have given, we also translated the advisories into Kiswahili, as well as the report for ease of accessibility. So we'll be sharing both the English and the Swahili versions that will also be available on our websites. Thank you. Sophie?
Thank you, Samson. And good morning again, everyone. I'm Sophie Hansen from the Danish Institute for Human Rights. At the Danish Institute for Human Rights, we share the same mandate as the Kenya Commission on Human Rights. And we are very proud to work alongside KNCHR here in Kenya. As sister institutions, our collaboration feels natural and essential. And we have been partnering on a number of human rights issues over the years. Our collaboration on human rights defenders began a few years ago, as Samson has already mentioned, when we start developing and addressing the environment of human rights defenders with the development of the Right to Defend Rights tool, also in collaboration with the Office of the High Commissioner on Human Rights in the UN, and importantly, a sister Human Rights Commission in the Philippines, who is also very active in protecting human rights defenders in the Philippines. So today, I think we have already seen a lot of results out of this collaboration and the development of the tool. And what we are learning from the Kenya experience is really the importance of partnerships and collaborations in collecting this data. And to collaborate between both states and non-state actors. We see it both in terms of gathering the data in a very systematic and comprehensive way, but we are also learning from your leadership, Samson, and the leadership of KNCHR, that the process of doing data partnerships is meaningful in so many ways in itself. It is a process that can build understanding, both in terms of human rights, but also of the different mandates, also in the state institutions and mandates that they have, but also trust between state and non-state actors. So we are really happy and honored to be in this journey together with you. And right now the tool is being used in 10 countries around the world. And the experience from Kenya is something which is which being looked at from other countries. Yes. And today, we heard the launch of the report from last month was one of the results for this collaboration. And with the advisories today, there is another milestone that you have achieved. And when we look ahead, I think it's worth noticing that the recommendations and the advisories, they are also very timely in terms of the 4th UPR cycle, which has just been completed, where we now see new accepted recommendations from this 4th cycle. And many of the facts and findings from the report and advisories can directly feed into this national process of implementation of the new recommendations from the 4th UPR cycle. And I looked into the recommendations, and there are at least 8 recommendations on freedom of opinion, on freedom of expression and assembly, including one of the recommendations which says, which the state has accepted, is to make efforts to create favorable conditions for guaranteeing freedom of association and expression, as well as freedom of media. This is a recommendation from Bulgaria that Kenya has accepted. So in wrapping up, I say that I look forward to the future of our collaboration. I give you the warm greetings from Denmark, the whole of my institution, the Danish Institute for Human Rights, and just to acknowledge the important role of KNCHR in this space. We see you in the community of national human rights institutions as a front runner on human rights defenders, and we're eager for other countries to learn from your experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sophie. We greatly value the partnership at the Commission, and we look forward to more results arising out of this. Bire.
Great work, Panasio and team. Samson, wonderful. Now, just to note that we increasingly need to take note that UPR does not become another routine thing, because how much of the recommendations are ever implemented? So we just need to be clear, and maybe the Commission sets up a full desk with an officer in terms of just looking at the recommendations and state of implementation, and then what do we do? I think that might help us, because some of the recommendations I'm reading started in the first cycle when I was still at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. There are still recommendations up to today. So we need just to be careful that it doesn't become a routine thing. Then the other thing, maybe as an advocacy approach that I'm thinking, and I'll speak about journalists rightly, is that the level of impunity is so high, as we have mentioned. Since 1969, I think there are only 4 cases against journalists that have been completed in this country. Yet we record nearly 2-3 cases per week. So that number is too high. So what do we do with these numbers? And maybe in terms of advocacy, we start expanding our recommendations and looking at some of these things. Because like when a journalist is injured or harassed, I see we limit ourselves to freedom of expression only. Yet there's a right to life, a right to a decent job, a right to security as a Kenyan, and all those things. So when we limit it, a minimalistic approach, and just say a journalist has been injured, but just say it's press freedom violation alone, we deny the other opportunity to talk about the right to life, right to job for that journalist and the family, and even those exoc rights. So I think in our approach as advocacy and those people who are working on it, let's expand the definition and the advocacy when we are looking at this, and bring back some of these recommendations. Because ICCPR, all those things, what does it mean at home? So that sometimes we also domesticate and make it easy for people to relate. Then I think it will make a lot more sense to advocacy. Then last but not least is actually thinking seriously about public interest litigation. There are so many cases, yet you see how they are being handled. So if we could also seriously think as an advocacy intervention, public interest litigation, especially like the cases I'm talking about journalists, Kenya is now number 119 or 16 globally in press freedom. Yet we talk about Article 33 and 34 all the time. But we have other 20 laws that affect negatively those 2 laws we talk about every day. So what do we do with these 20 laws that negate the 2 laws we mentioned every day, Article 34, 35? So again, using either Kenyan laws, the East African Court of Justice and Africa, we need to expand the way we are pushing for human rights. We have become too routine. Somebody is beaten, we go to our court, it's not listened, then we leave it there. So we would rather pick a few cases and use all the available means so that at least we get some success. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bire. I think just for your information is that there's also a parallel work that we do, particularly on SDG 16.10.1,
where the Media Council of Kenya plays a very important role in terms of sharing data. Journalists that have been, of course, the focus on those that have been killed, but we have the injuries and all those, so that's taken into consideration. So I want to open this up before I get here. Anything from anyone that wants to make any contribution? Livingstone.
Asante sana, nashukuru, shukran za dhati kwa nafasi hii. Kwanza ni kuwapongeza Tume ya Huru ya Utetezi wa Kitaifa ya Utetezi wa Haki za Kibinadamu kwa kazi njema ambayo mmefanya kuhakikisha kuwa mmetoa ripoti nzuri sana, na pia kutoa ushauri kwa taasisi tofauti tofauti za kiserikali. Jambo la ambapo yalinitia moyo zaidi ni kuwa mmeweza kuitafsiri kwa Kiswahili pia hii ripoti. Manake hiyo inaonyesha kuwa mmezingatia hali yenu, mmezingatia katiba, hususan kipengele 7 ambapo inatujurutisha sisi tuwe na jukumu la kizalendo la kuhakikisha kuwa tumeenzi Kiswahili. Itakuwa vema sana kwa sababu manake sisi kama watetezi wa haki za kibinadamu kutoka mashinani tutaweza kuweza kuiangalia kwa kina na itatusaidia sana kuhakikisha kuwa tumeweza kushurutisha serikali kuhakikisha kuwa wametekeleza yale majukumu yao ambapo wamejitolea. Jambo lingine, kuna baadhi ambapo ningependa labda mngeangalia zaidi. Kuna pendekezo ambapo mmepeana kuwa mnataka kuwa jeshi lifunzwe haki za kibinadamu kusudi wapate kufanya kazi ya polisi, ama pale wanapoitwa kufanya kazi ya polisi wawe wako tayari kwa sababu washapata ile mafunzo ya kibinadamu. Ni vema kupata zile mafunzo ya haki za kibinadamu, lakini jambo ambalo lanitia shaka ni kuwa tuache polisi wafanye kazi ya polisi, jeshi wafanye kazi ya jeshi. Maana wazungu wasema the military belongs to the barracks. Kwa hivyo pale tunaporuhusu jeshi liingie kufanya kazi za polisi, basi tutapatia mwanya wale viongozi wetu ambao watawatumia vibaya wale jeshi. Ikiwa wale polisi wenyewe ambao wamefunzwa haki za kibinadamu wanakiuka zile haki za kibinadamu, kupiga watu risasi ovyo ovyo na kuwajeruhi na kukiuka zile haki za kibinadamu, je, wale jeshi ambao hawajapewa yale mafunzo, ikiwa watapewa yale mafunzo labda kwa nadra kidogo, lakini bado itabidi kuwa tutaweza kupoteza zile haki za binadamu. Ikiwa tunaona kuwa kuna upungufu katika idara ya polisi, basi tuna jukumu sisi kuhakikisha kuwa tumeangalia yale mapungufu na tumepeana mapendekezo yale atawezesha ile polisi kufanya kazi yake ya kipolisi vizuri na kuzingatia. Ikiwa wana upungufu wa labda wafanyikazi, basi sisi tutapendekeza. Ikiwa na upungufu wa teknolojia, basi tuna uwezo wa kufanya yale. Jambo lingine la kumalizia ni kuwa mimi natoka kwa shirika la Defenders Coalition, shirika la kitaifa ambalo linatetea watetezi wa haki za kibinadamu, na tunatoa hakikisho kuwa tutaweza kutembea na tume na pamoja na mashirika yote ambayo yanatetea haki sako kwa bako kuhakikisha kuwa tumeweza kutimiza yale mapendekezo yaliyokuwa katika ripoti ya leo. Kumalizia ni kuwa kuna sheria ambayo inaitwa National Coroner Service Act ambapo tangu idhinishwe mwaka wa 2017 mpaka sasa haijaanza kufanya kazi. Hatujakuwa tume ama taasisi ambapo inaongoza ile. Na kumekuwa na watetezi wa haki za binadamu ambao wameweza kupoteza maisha yao ndani ya police stations ama vituo vya polisi. Kwa hivyo na yale jukumu la hizi sheria ni kuhakikisha kuwa wameangalia kwa kina yale mauaji ambayo yanajitokeza ambayo hawezi kuelezwa kwa kina. Kwa hivyo jambo pia ningependa pia katika ile mapendekezo yenu na kuwa katika yale mapendekezo muweze pia kuzingatia kuwa zile sheria ambapo zimeshabuniwa ikiwemo Protection of Torture Act imeweza kutiliwa manane na imeweza kuwa operationalized katika ile muktasar. Asante sana na Mwenyezi Mungu awabariki.
Thank you very much. We all appreciate the important work by Defenders Coalition in supporting a couple of us, those of us working at the grassroots level, social justice centers, as well as those working in very difficult substances. I think, allow me to mention something. I remember myself and Commissioner Jedida, when she was at the commission, getting very excited the day the National Coroner Service Act was enacted.
because the two acts were enacted almost the same time, Prevention of Torture Act and the National Coroner Service Act. And we said the big job would be ensuring that the implementation of them. That big job still stays up to date. That the two acts have largely remained unscratched. So really a call to action for all of us. Because there's no other hand I can see. Teddy, I don't know whether you want to say something before I get to this table. Teddy, please.
Thank you. For the people who don't know me, my name is Teddy Ochieng from the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. So first of all, let me just bring our apologies from our head of office, who is in another meeting and was not able to attend. And you allow me to read a small statement from, not a statement, but remarks from our office. On behalf of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights in Kenya, we are honored to be here in this launch of this series of advisories by Kenya National Commission for Human Rights. These advisories, as rightly been mentioned, are rooted in the Right to Defend Right report, which provide a good roadmap for protecting those on the front line of justice, and that is the Kenya Human Rights Defenders. Now, the report is clear, and Samson has already given highlights of what is in the report. There were killings of defenders, disappearances, arbitrary detentions, and these are not just figures or statistics. They represent lives that has been lost, or voices that have been silenced, or communities that have been deprived of their champions. And even though the report didn't document any kidnappings or torture, we know for the last 3 years that is a different story. The risk environment still remains precarious. The assessment reveals also a troubling gap between what we call our Kenyan strong constitutional guarantees, and we already talked to that, versus the lived realities of our defenders. If you look at the general framework scores on human rights protection, for our human rights defenders protection, those numbers are low. If you look at the freedom of association and assembly scores, if you look at the scores on peaceful, on violent, what we call liberty and security protections, those numbers are still very low, which shows our partial effectiveness, but inconsistent implementation. At the same time, the report shows good areas of excellence, of resilience, where there's a freedom of opinion and expression, which we saw very high, with higher scores, bolstered by judicial precedents that we have seen, while participation on public affairs has also improved, reflecting strong constitutional safeguards. These are areas that will provide a foundation for us to build on. Now, the advisories that have been launched today are designed to move us from just analysis to action, but they are direct specific guidance to right holders, government, parliament, security agencies, civil society, and even us as communities on how to close the gap between our commitment and practice and ensure that no defender is left unprotected. So from us as OHHR, defending defenders is defending democracy, and we'll stand with both Kenya National Commission for Human Rights, the civil society, and work collaboratively with state actors and various entities to ensure that those who defend the rights are themselves defended. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Teddy. I have 2 hands, but you have to promise me you'll speak in 1 minute each so that I get to that table. So 1 minute for you and 1 minute for you.
one of the recommendations I'll put in is that if there could be amendment of legal aid act to enable CBOs to conduct legal aid, because currently only PBOs are the ones that are granted the access to give legal aid. And you can see many HRDs when their rights have been violated. It's the CBOs that they are their first responders. But it's kind of tricky because in a certain way we do it illegally. And that falls in the office of Attorney General. And I think Kenya National Commission of Human Rights can have a discussion with the office of Attorney General so that they can grant us the access to give legal aid. Thank you.
CEO has taken notes. Thank you.
Once again, my name is Kavoli Bernard. I have two questions. I have skimmed through the recommendations by this commission and noted several observations. On the issue of acceptance of the request for a visit to Kenya by the special rapporteurs on human rights defenders, my question would be, given the current political climate in the country, does this commission believe there is genuine political will to protect human rights defenders? Or is it just about international pressure? Number two, I see there are responsible state organs listed in this recommendation, and one of them is police, or the National Police Service, or the National Police Service Commission. And my question would be, how does this commission address the recurring issue of police and state security entities being both protectors and violators of human rights defenders' rights? Thank you.
CEO, if you allow me, I think we can respond to the questions when we're doing the media briefing. Okay? Is that okay? Yeah, when you're doing the media briefing. So I want to get to this table. Chris, I think begin with you. Then.
Thanks, Samson. I think that's a good work. My name is Chris Owala. I work with Community Initiative Action Group Kenya. These reports speak to my own case study. I think I've been a victim of state attack. But I want to get into the level of business and human rights, actually extractive industry. The human rights defenders are defending human rights workers that are defending the land, defending environment are more at risk because this investment attract multinationals. And every day they don't sleep in their homes. And I want to, this report, Samson need to also look at how can it be addressed to the police action and inaction. How can it be addressed on ODP, which allow police to do trump-up charges for people simply defending their land? How can this report be addressed to the courts that are using judicial independence to put slap and also make the space shrink? You are taken to court, you are in your land, police arrest you, so you become not a Kenyan. So I think this report also needs to address that. And I look at what Bira was saying. The journalist also has been cowed because if you report, you are attacked, no one speaks for you. And I think when you attack everyone, then there's no society. And I'm looking upon that even no condition remain permanent. Even the police officers, when they are in the positions, they attack you. But when they become victims, they come for us to defend them. So we look at this circle. We are all human beings. So as we become duty bearers, also let's know that we can also be victimized. So the high level of criminalization in the land sector, in the environment sector, is making this case. There's a police station like in Yala that keep on arresting communities because of Shanta, an international company, oppressing the locals, in every day, people are in cell. These people, that's their land. And you are arresting these people because they don't want the company to take their land. So I think some of these things, as we go deeper as a country, we need to really reflect and see whether that society we want. Another level of violation that report didn't address is labor rights. You see counties over and over again terminate, sack their staffs. And there's no one to defend them. And this is one of the critical rights of this nation. I think when we speak as a nation, we need to speak as one. The special rapporteur and human rights defenders wrote to Kenya government about my case. The Kenya government didn't respond and tells you the inaction that is there. So if we cannot respond to violations that are happening then even the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, the role they play might not be valued if we don't respect human rights as a nation. Actually, if we subscribe that this is an institution that's supposed to protect Kenya. So I think, Samson, this is a good report. Only thing we need to know that how do we make it sure that this report goes beyond Nairobi so that it's understood across the country, so that we all support the implementation and monitoring of this, and also draw an action framework for implementation that will make sure that matrix that we can also see. The report acknowledged that there's 90% of access to information. Yes, I know the CAG is doing good work, but there are institutions that are not responding to access to information. Can we also isolate them and deal with them? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chris. And I think it's a good point now to invite National Police Service to also give us their comments, feedback, and input.
Good morning, all. Allow me to ride on the protocol that has already been established in terms of introduction. And I take this opportunity to thank the conveners of this very important event, so that by inviting us, they recognize the important role the police play or act as a key stakeholder on the subject issue. Having said that, I have gone through, I saw the presentation as presented, and I know amongst the recommendations, there are those that are specific, that touch on the Office of the Inspector General that needs his direct input in terms of implementation. I want to assure you that as a service, we are going to work towards implementing the recommendation that fall within the powers and control of the Inspector General. I also take cognizance of the key highlights you have mentioned or brought forth in terms of tainting the police as the key violators of human rights. But to me, I want to take it as a fallacy, because if you take a scare really, you are not being fair to the police by saying that we are the violators of human rights. Let us try to isolate some of the cases. I understand we have some of the rogue officers within the service. Action has been taken. We have several oversight bodies that oversight the work of the police, and drastic action has been taken on those isolated cases. So let us not condemn the entire service blanketly without giving the specifics. You will go towards killing the efforts of those that are good in the service. You are here. This meeting has been convened because of the security you are enjoying. There are success stories Ryongo can mention before this, where he has worked hand in hand with the police, and he has seen some of the good results. So let us give praise where it deserves, and let us condemn where we err. Then, as I conclude, I will urge every agency to play its roles towards ensuring that human rights are upheld.
we are all potential victims of violations. So you should not use your position as a bet to violate those that are not in power. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At the Commission, we believe that, and CEO, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, we believe that police role is to protect and promote human rights. I think that's a starting point. So there could be violations in the process, but that is not their main role. And we take cognizance of the important work that is done by the police in maintaining law and order to allow us undergo our daily activities, which falls in facilitating us in one way or the other. So thank you so much, and pass our regards to the Inspector General. We appreciate the collaboration that we have with the office at the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. So allow me to welcome Commissioner Jedida to also give her remarks. Karibu, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, and good morning. Allow me to stand on the protocols that were established during our introductions and take this opportunity to appreciate the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights for publicly enabling us to know what the advisory is on the issues of human rights defenders. I also take this opportunity to share my views under this ukumbi on human rights defenders and say that as the Witness Protection Agency, we appreciate the interagency collaboration we have with Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, particularly because the chairperson of the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights sits as a board member of the agency, and therefore is usually on the forefront of ensuring that our 7 witness protection pillars, one being interagency, collaboration, human rights approach, and accountability, are the agency is on the front line of that. I've listened to the advisory, and I'm happy to note that on the issue of freedom of education and access to remedy, we are above 50%. Education, we are 56%, and access to remedy, we are 67%. That, I think, is a positive move in terms of us moving forward on the issue of human rights defenders. I'd urge the National Commission on Human Rights to also ensure beyond Swahili, which I'm very not good at reading, but I do know how to read Braille, to translate the same to Braille for those who are hard of hearing, and also to sign language, so that those who are blind for Braille and those who are hard of hearing, to translate this to sign language, which will also possibly be a faster way of disseminating this advisory. On behalf of the of Kenya, of the Witness Protection Agency, I want to say that we continue to provide special protection to those people who are at risk and those who are intimidated because of the human rights or because of the information that they hold, and are cooperating with DPP, and I'm happy the prosecution is here, and also other law enforcement agencies, and I'm happy the National Police Service has spoken before me. At the agency, our mandate is really to provide special protections to those who are at risk, and also give advice to both state and non-state actors on measures and strategies on protecting witnesses. So as I listen to this advisory and asking myself what are the opportunities in terms of implementation, because that is the key factor that has been established, and noting that a lot of work continues to be done and has been done. For us at the agency, we look forward to having human rights defenders continue to refer witnesses to us for special protection. And secondly, some of those witnesses may actually be human rights defenders who are at risk or intimidated because of the important information that they hold, and they are cooperating with the prosecution or other law enforcement agencies as witnesses. The third thing is that as the agency, we are ready and available to provide human rights defenders who are working and supporting witnesses on measures and strategies that they may use to protect them, particularly witnesses that do not fit within the criteria of witness protection. I think it's important that we have a special program known as Witness Protection Agency, that we have also another opportunity with the human rights defenders, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, and the other agencies that are here, to strengthen so that we can be able to have the voices, especially the voices of whistleblowers, heard much more clearly without further intimidation. And we have three bills that I would also want to bring to the attention for your advocacy. The one is the Anti-Corruption Amendments Bill of 2025, which strengthens the Witness Protection Agency in matters of witness protection, and also for the first time onboarding matters of whistleblower and having the frontline protection. And the second bill is the Whistleblower Bill, again, which is very important because a lot of HRDs are whistleblowers when it comes to matters corruption, and therefore strengthens both the EACC and also the Commission on Administration of Justice. And lastly, there is the National Protection Service Bill, which is supposed to strengthen the Victim Protection Board so that we can be able to deal and respond to issues of victim rehabilitation, compensation, and the like, using a more strengthened victim protection service. The second last thing I want to say is that as an agency, I know people struggle to appreciate how and why and who we protect, and therefore we are available to sensitize and train justice centers or HRDs in terms of appreciating our mandate and also the criteria of admission, because it is very strict, not because we want to exclude anybody as a country, but because this is the only agency that is providing special protection on behalf of the state, and it is the measure of last resort. That means our first protectors are the National Police Service, and as they have said, that is why we are here to do. So those are our first protectors. Our second protectors are the judiciary, who provide the administrative judicial protection. And when that is not strong enough, we come to complement and support the two to ensure that there is special protection. So it is important that HRDs understand, and all of us understand, the criteria that is used, which is high because of the high risk threshold that ensures that we are able to protect the most vulnerable of the vulnerable. Allow me to end with the words of Irene Zubeida Khan, who is a Bangladeshi British lawyer. Not sure what that means, but I think that means she has two nationalities, a human rights activist, and is currently serving as the UN Special Rapporteur on freedom of expression and opinion, which was one of the issues here, and also was the 7th Secretary General of Amnesty International in the world, and Amnesty is represented here. And this is what she said, because this is very true of all the people who have spoken before me in terms of human security and this advisory, that human security comes only with human rights and the rule of law. Human rights are the basis for creating strong and accountable states, without which there can be no political stability or social progress. So we are here to ensure that as a nation we are stable, we are promoting both human rights and the rule of law to ensure that there is social progress. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I hope Olal and the team from Social Justice Centers, you've taken note of the comment by Commissioner Jedida that she's willing and is mandated by law to work with you and protect you. She's also willing to participate in building your capacity in terms of what is required. So, Commissioner, I think that myself and Olal will follow up to ensure that we actualize that.
So allow me to welcome the CEO of CAJ, who will give us her remarks as well as close the meeting. Madam CEO, karibu.
Thank you very much. Allow me to ride on the established protocols. And my name is Mercy Wambua. I serve as the Commission Secretary and the CEO of the Office of the Ombudsman, which is the Commission on Administrative Justice. It's indeed a great honor for the Commission on Administrative Justice to stand here. And first, we start by congratulating our sister commission, the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights. We say the commission is a sister commission because we are born from one womb, Article 59 of the Constitution of Kenya. Congratulations for the boldness. Congratulations for abiding by the Constitution, and you continue to lead in the fight against violation of human rights and for defending human rights in this country. As a sister commission, we take note of that and we take pride that you have been able to do this great work. Congratulations on the launch of the advisory, which is very timely, as has been said by the previous speakers who have spoken ahead of me, taking into consideration what this country has witnessed in the last few years. The recommendations in this advisory, again, are also timely. And the Commission on Administrative Justice reiterates and reaffirms its commitment to promote and defend human rights, including human rights defenders, as mandated by the Constitution, the Commission on Administrative Justice Act, and Access to Information Act. There are various recommendations touching on various government institutions, and as the Office of the Ombudsman, we call on each and every government institution that has been given a particular recommendation to take up those recommendations seriously for purposes of the implementation. The Commission notes recommendation 16 on undertaking of a national survey that is required for purposes of confirming the status of implementation of access to information in Kenya. The Office of the Ombudsman has a dual mandate. The first mandate is on addressing cases of maladministration in the public sector. And the second mandate is on promoting access to information. And we are happy and delighted that our sister commission has noted that there is need for that to be done. We have been doing several researches and work around assessing the level of implementation of access to information. And I'm also glad to note from the survey that you did, it is indicated that over 90% of human rights defenders are able to access information. But like you said, the question is, what do they do with this information when they receive? There has also been reports that indeed there are some government entities that are not releasing information. That's the reason why the Commission on Administrative Justice exists. Kindly forward all those reviews to our commission. Human rights defenders ideally are the best placed on behalf of the Kenyan citizens to invoke our jurisdiction whenever you request any information that is held by any government entity, including private sector, and that information is not provided, or it's provided in a manner that is not useful, you have a right to approach the commission for a review, and the commission will be able to consider the decision by the institution to decline to provide the information, or to provide the information in the manner that is not useful to you as a human rights defender or to the Kenyans that you're defending. And we give binding orders. This is a great opportunity also for human rights defenders, because you don't need to go to the High Court straight away to request for orders for release of information. The costs you incur, the time is taken in court. The commission is the first stop where you can bring your request for information. I would like to confirm that since 2016, when the Access to Information Act was promulgated, the Commission has been able to receive over 1,600 review cases on access to information. But again, this is not a lot or enough. I am sure that there are Kenyans who are still struggling, and also from the reports we have received, there are Kenyans who probably are not yet aware that they can come to us, to the Commission, for purposes of request for information. And I'm delighted to report that out of the orders that the Commission has been able to give for information to be released, over 90% of those orders have been complied with by the various government entities that we have ordered to release the information. However, there's still a lot that needs to be done within the sector on to promote the access to information, which is a human rights issue, including the recommendation that Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has given for purposes of us undertaking a national survey. I would like also to report that as part of the work that the Commission is doing, is for the first time we are researching and with a view to develop the first state of openness for this country report. This will be the first probably also within the Africa, and it will give us we will be able to understand where we are at as a nation in terms of openness, which of course is promoted through access to information. Thank you, Commissioner Jedida, for raising the issue of whistleblower protection that is required, because it's very necessary for the human rights defenders. And the Commission on Administrative Justice has been pushing for the establishment of this law and the bill, with a view of ensuring that within the mandate that the Commission has under the access to information, to ensure that there is no reiteration. Any whistleblower should not be affected or discriminated as a result of giving the information that they have given. And putting in place this whistleblower bill will really work towards ensuring that human rights defenders are protected. And we are aware that the bill is at an advanced stage, and we also call on the Office of the Attorney General to really fast track to ensure that this is done. Currently also, the Commission developed the National Access to Information Policy, which is also pending at the cabinet level, and we are also working with the Ministry of ICT to ensure that the policy is adopted. Some of the surveys that we've undertaken have also identified a weakness and the need for government to digitize its information. Because without digitization, it's very difficult to retrieve information that is relevant to human rights defenders as well as our citizens. I have also been requested to give the closing remarks. And as we conclude this launch of the advisory on the situation of human rights defenders in Kenya, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to all of you for your active participation and valuable contributions. This advisory, our sister commission, please note, is a testament to our collective commitment to promoting and protecting human rights in Kenya. Again, I urge all stakeholders, including the government agencies, civil society organizations, and the general public, to note and take actions towards implementation of these recommendations and work together to create a safe and enabling environment for human rights defenders to carry out their crucial work. Oftentimes, the various independent officers and constitutional commissions do give recommendations. And I have also noted that there is one that has been indicated to have been repeatedly been recommended and no action is being undertaken. I believe the time is ripe for the constitutional commissions and independent officers to take further steps to ensure that there is proper implementation framework. And I am aware that under the office of the Deputy President, there are legislative reforms that are going on, and probably this is the ideal time for these CCIOs to strategically place themselves in a situation where to push for legislative reform for purposes of ensuring that recommendations are complied with by government agencies. Again, I reiterate that the Commission on Administrative Justice, also the Office of the Ombudsman, has a mandate to deal with cases of maladministration. Holding a Kenyan citizen or a human rights defender excessively in a police custody, contrary to the law, contrary to the constitution in itself, is a maladministration. And those are some of the issues that we deal with at the Commission. Again, the Commission reaffirms its commitment to enforcing the right to information, and we will take into consideration the recommendations from this advisory to inform our future surveys and research initiatives, ensuring that the voices and the concerns of human rights defenders are reflected in our work. And I believe that this is something we can be able to kickstart CEO as soon as possible jointly to initiate that survey. I now call upon all government institutions mandated to implement these recommendations to do so without any further delay. We urge prompt action to address the challenges faced by human rights defenders and to ensure that their rights are protected. The time for action is now, and we expect tangible progress in the implementation of these recommendations. Together, let's continue to promote a culture of respect for human rights, dignity, and the rule of law. Together, we can build a society where human rights defenders can operate freely and contribute to the advancement of justice, equality, and human dignity for all Kenyans. Thank you once again, and may this advisory serve as a catalyst for meaningful action and positive change in Kenya. Asanteni.
Thank you very much, Madam CEO. I think the meeting is dismissed. So I've been requested by my colleagues that we want us to do a group photo. So please, would you please come and arrange us for the group photo? Then after that, the Commission will do a brief media briefing, but others are dismissed after that. Thank you.